Darkness. It wasn't just the absence of light, it was a force, a silent spectator to your suffering, a witness to the cruel games they played. They thought they had won. They thought they had shattered you, reduced you to nothing more than a whisper of the person you once were. Oh, how wrong they were! You see, they mistook your silence for defeat. They believed the weight of their betrayal, the cruelty of their words, and the knives they lodged into your back would be enough to break you beyond repair. They laughed, reveling in your supposed downfall, unaware that something far more sinister was brewing beneath your agony. Pain has a way of transforming people. Some let it consume them, dragging them into a pit of despair. But then, there are the rare ones. The ones who take every ounce of pain, every betrayal, every insult, and forge something unstoppable from the ashes. That was you. You weren't just enduring the darkness. You were becoming it. The descent, or so they thought. At first, it was unbearable. The whispers behind your back turned into roars. The people you trusted, oh, how effortlessly they turned their backs on you, their eyes filled with smug satisfaction. They wanted to see you beg, to hear you scream, to watch as you crumbled under the weight of their treachery. They thought they had stripped you of everything. Your dignity, your dreams, your strength. They wanted to see you break. And for a time, they thought they had succeeded. You walked among them, hollow-eyed, your soul burdened with the weight of their cruelty. You felt the sting of their mockery, the sting of being cast aside like a worthless pawn in a game you never agreed to play. They relished in it. They thrived on the illusion of your downfall. But something strange started happening. The more they pushed, the more they tried to grind you into dust, the quieter you became. Your screams faded, replaced by an eerie stillness. Your suffering was no longer entertainment. It became unsettling. They wanted you to lash out, to break down, to beg for mercy. But you didn't. You simply watched. And that's when the fear crept in. The awakening, and the shift in power. They underestimated you. Oh, how foolish they were. You see, when someone has nothing left to lose, they become something else entirely. The moment your last tear dried, the moment you stopped pleading for their understanding, something inside you cracked, not in despair, but in revelation. You didn't need their approval. You didn't need their acceptance. The people who sought to break you, they were never powerful. They were cowards hiding behind their cruelty, feeding off the suffering of others because they feared their own weakness. And once you realized that, everything changed. Your silence was no longer a sign of defeat, it became a weapon. They saw it. They felt it. The shift in energy. The weight of your presence. You didn't need to say a word. You walked differently. Held yourself differently. The scars they inflicted? They didn't weaken you, they turned into armor. And suddenly, the ones who mocked you found themselves glancing over their shoulders, uneasy. Because you weren't supposed to rise. You weren't supposed to survive. And yet, here you were, standing taller than ever. The fear they never expected. The tables were turning. Slowly, but inevitably. At first, they ignored the change, convincing themselves it was just a fluke. But then they started noticing things they couldn't explain. The way their laughter no longer carried the same joy. The way their victories felt hollow. The way your presence, silent, unwavering, made their hearts race with an unexplainable dread. They had spent so much time trying to destroy you that they never considered what would happen if you refused to fall. They had given you something they never should have, pain. Because pain is the greatest teacher. It burns, it scars, but for those who survive it, it forges something terrifying. They had pushed you into the abyss, but they never expected you to emerge from it stronger than ever. And now, it was their turn to feel small. Because you weren't the victim anymore. You were something far, far more dangerous. You were unstoppable. Their smiles began to fade. Their confidence, once so intoxicating, started to wane. They whispered among themselves now. Something was different about you. It wasn't just that you had stopped begging for their approval, it was something more. A presence. A silent, creeping terror that followed you like a shadow. You didn't fight back the way they expected. You didn't return their words with anger or desperation. No, you simply existed, calm, unreadable, untouchable. And that terrified them. because they no longer knew what you were thinking. You had been the victim for so long that they never considered what would happen if you stopped playing the role. Now, they were the ones feeling watched. Now, they were the ones feeling hunted. The weight of their own sins. They could feel it now, the weight of their actions. At first, they laughed it off, trying to convince themselves that you were still the same broken person they had left behind. But deep down, they knew the truth. The power dynamic had shifted. They had tried to bury you, thinking that if they piled on enough dirt, you'd disappear forever. But instead, you had become something else. The dirt they threw over you, it only made you stronger. And now, they were haunted, not by a ghost, but by something worse. By the realization that they had created their own downfall. They had given you the pain. They had shaped the suffering. They had forged the weapon. And now, that weapon had turned against them. They wanted to see you broken. Instead, they were now the ones breaking. The fear they couldn't escape. They tried to ignore it at first. Tried to pretend that nothing had changed. But oh, how their bodies betrayed them. The uneasy glances. The nervous stammers. The way their hands trembled ever so slightly when you walked into the room. They thought they had power over you. But power is a fragile thing. It's only real if the other person believes in it. And you stopped believing in their power a long time ago. Now, you walked without fear. Without hesitation. You no longer needed revenge, because the greatest punishment was already unfolding before you. They were prisoners of their own conscience. Every smirk they had thrown your way now felt hollow. Every insult they had hurled now echoed back at them. Every time they had mocked your pain, they were now feeling it tenfold. They didn't need you to strike back. No, the worst punishment of all was watching you rise while they crumbled. The unstoppable force they never saw coming. Once upon a time, they thought they had broken you. Now they were the ones breaking. The whispers behind your back. They had turned into whispers of fear. The people who once stood against you. They were now standing in awe, too afraid to meet your gaze. Because you weren't the same person they had tried to destroy. You were something else now. Something unstoppable. And as they looked at you, eyes filled with dread, hearts pounding with the weight of their own guilt, they finally understood. They had spent so long trying to break you, that they never considered what would happen if you survived. But you did. And now, you didn't need to say a single word. Because your existence alone was enough to haunt them forever.